Hangtown. All right. So what happened at Hangtown? Okay. Here's a couple things that I noticed. You let me know what you thought.
Mhm. Yep.
Moto 1, 450.
Mhm.
Track was pretty smooth. That was the first thing when I turned the TV on. I started watching. I think 250s were the first moto, and I was like, "Whoa, track's
Mm.
really smooth. Like, why did they groom
Mhm.
every single section on this thing? Way too high speed, way too smooth." And then where they did kind of groom it, they didn't till it deep. They just sort of like dozer bladed it flat. It looked like.
Mm.
So then 450s get out there for their first moto, and right away I go, "Oh, this isn't going to work for Jet's riding style, one, and two, for the way that Jet's
Mhm.
bike is set up, because you have to charge and pound through these braking bumps because they were just small and there was a lot of them. And you can't do
Yeah.
the old Jet hop and bounce and skip through them.
Yeah.
And I think
Yep.
Jet pushed for like the first 8 minutes. And then after that, and you could tell because the camera was on him a lot in those 8 minutes, and his
Mhm.
bike was skipping and dancing all over the place. It looked like too stiff, and it was just deflecting off of everything. And then he just
Okay.
called it. You could tell he was like, "Nope, I'm good. I'm just gonna
Yeah.
stay here." Where a Tomac, the way that he rides, and
Oh.
Plessinger,
Yeah.
the way that
Mhm.
he rides, that was a perfect track in that Moto 1 for those guys.
Yeah. So I think what you're saying is Jet's bike is set up to almost treat a lot of like the rough braking bumps as like mini jumps. So he
Yeah.
sets his bike up to like kind of ramp off of these bumps and keep it more like that. So yeah, he would have a stiffer setup to allow for that like preload hop and stuff like that. So when you don't have that setup and you have to just charge through braking bumps, probably felt like he was riding a jackhammer for a little
It looked
while.
like it.
Yeah, yeah, and then when you have that, you're gonna deflect off of bumps, you're not gonna be as plush and absorb a lot more, so I'm glad you mentioned that because it did look like not every time, because there were some places where I'll just say Jet's bike looks like it's set up amazing when it's the tracks that he likes. So there were instances where I was like, "Oh, that was a what was that twitch?" Like he'd come in and have to like kind of readjust and coming into a high speed corner or the section after like that. And I don't know what that was. It looked like a 10 pack. It almost reminded me of 10 Commandments where you like hop over the first one, then you're kind of tripling, then quad, up the
Looked
hill.
cool.
It looked super cool. Like sections like that, I was like, oh, he's having to like kind of adjust a little bit. Not crazy, and you had to really watch it. But going back to the track layout, this is probably one of the only pro tracks that I've seen where I was like, the number one, all the outsides look like so much fun. And
Mm.
like I want to get out there and like ride the track. Normally, you will never hear me say, "Oh, that looks like fun. I want to ride Mount Morris after a pro national." But like watching how Tomac and Deegan, I'll even throw AP in there, maybe even Masterpool, the way they were railing those outsides, I was like, man, that track looks like it's a good time right now. And I never say that. So from a fan perspective, I dug it. From a pro racer perspective, you may feel differently that it's not the proper way to prep a track. I thought it was pretty sick. I was watching it like, man, I'd probably do that like AP until like, I had that thought and I was like, probably not. But it looked awesome and it looked super cool the way that they lay out the track like that. And now let me ask you this. Do you wish and do you think more pros wish that the tracks were prepped like that, where it may not be as rough in the traditional sense, but still allows for guys to be able to race a little bit harder maybe and have some parity in the class like we saw this past weekend in Moto 1?
I don't know. I think it'd be a little bit torn. I would guess that most riders, usually riders that are at a higher level, agree that slower speeds equals more safety. Where this
Mm,
weekend it was less rough, at least in Moto ones, right? Where
yeah.
I was watching and thinking to myself, they're going too fast. Like some of those
Mm,
downhills, they were bombing them, and I don't know. I don't even like watching that because I just picture something going a little wrong, and next thing those they're going to be cartwheeling going 70 miles an hour. I just don't.
mm,
I don't think it is fun to watch because I'm nervous for
mhm,
them. And I know for a fact that that's not fun for me as a racer. There's probably some guys that like that. I
mhm,
think generally speaking, at the highest level, guys like it gnarly and rough and rutted. I mean, at least,
mm,
yeah, at least I do. And
mm,
for the sole purpose of the fact that it just slows everybody down. And
yeah.
even Moto 2, you saw that
Uh-huh.
difference. Moto
Yeah.
2, every section looked quite a bit different.
Mhm,
Speeds were slower. Um, and I thought it was way more fun to watch. Guys got separated a little bit more,
Mhm.
which I guess maybe you could argue that makes it less fun to watch. But I like when it creates a separation because then it leads to a little bit more creativity. Whereas in
Mm.
Moto 1, it's just who's got the cojones to just rail the outsides, Deegan style, and hold on to this thing.
Yeah.
And Moto 2, it becomes a little bit more about, okay, you got to start to be strategic and think about what you're doing a little bit more. If you guys enjoyed that podcast clip, you can listen to full episodes on Apple Music and Spotify. And make sure if you haven't already, join our community inside of the Moto Academy app. Go to themotoacademy.com today. I'll see you guys inside the community.